All right. And I think we're live, Nanya. I didn't do an intro, nothing like that. I'm honestly not even 100% sure if we are live, but I'm going to act like we are. So I apologize. Yep, we're live. There we go. I apologize for the half an hour delay, but we showed up late to a game just like the Jets defense, or probably even more than the Jets defense. At least we showed up.
At least
So,
we showed up. There we go. We're in perfect sync on that one.
so what's up, Nanya?
Definitely not the Jets defense, that's for sure. But I'm feeling good. Just trying to evaluate what we can from this season, just like we do every December. The best we can do.
Yeah, I'm sorry for all the people who were waiting in the studio. A couple people dropped off. Hopefully, people find the link. What's up? Both Chris's. I missed everybody. I didn't miss doing film. I didn't get to watch the film of the Texans game, which would have been a little bit fun. Watching the Eagles game. You know, I'm at the Tiki Bar, a couple of painkillers deep, and the first drive they scored a touchdown. I'm like, oh shit, okay. You know, maybe we end the 11 game skid versus the Eagles, and then they missed the field goal or the extra point. I was like, it's a little bit suspect. And then the Eagles drive touchdown. I was like, oh, yep, that's the game. And then the Jets drive back. I believe the next drive touchdown, missed another extra point. I'm like, nope, it ain't it. I have that feeling. I know it's gonna happen. So that was somewhat entertaining. And then next game, again, while in St. Thomas, watching the Saints game, and that was pretty much a shit show from the beginning, where the Jets defense couldn't stop a nosebleed to an offense that they knew they had a quarterback who couldn't throw the ball and who would be strictly handing off to the running back. So like while people are like, oh, they stopped the running game, like, well, yeah, but well for a quarterback who can't throw past 10 yards and isn't accurate and is just a running quarterback, like not so well in my opinion. Again, I don't have the stats, I don't watch the film, but it was definitely nice to take a break from watching Jets film because now I have to do it again for the last 4 weeks of the season. And then we get into where we thrive as Jets fans, as Jets websites, as Jets content creators, is in the offseason. So then we get to view actual good players and actual good teams and draft picks who can hopefully turn this team around. I'm just hoping it doesn't have the same thing doesn't happen, where the Jets maybe win a game or two, knock themselves out of good draft position, which at this point, like, listen, if they win with Zach Wilson and Michael Carter and these guys, I wouldn't be too mad. But we're in like that cycle where it's like, okay, get a little bit of hope before the end of the season, get some really good free agents, get some really good draft picks that we really like. A lot of them get injured. We go into the year with optimism, and then by the end of September, it's just shooting way downhill. So I guess we'll see. But it was definitely nice to take a little break. So I'm going to kind of tie in some of the Eagles game to this as well, Nanya, but we'll mostly hit on the Saints game because that was the last game to happen. And the first thing actually we should hit on, which doesn't really matter for Jets fans, and a lot of people get mad that people talk about Trevor Lawrence, but it was really nice. I'm sure you had a lot of Jaguars fans in your mentions who were telling you how wrong you're going to be about Urban Meyer, how wrong we're going to be about that whole situation down in Jacksonville. And I am saving tweets. I'm still like, I'm risking it because I have a bunch of Jaguars fans who are like, oh, Urban Meyer's a great coach. He's a great leader. He's a great this. And they're going to spank the Jets week, whatever, 15, 16, whatever the week is. So I'm kind of like, playing a little bit risky where I'm not quote tweeting them now, and I'm gonna wait for hopefully the Jets to win that game, and then I can shit on them maybe more. But what are your thoughts on Urban Meyer, who's hiring like sexual offenders and cheating on his wife with girls at his own bar, getting videotaped and kicking kickers and doing all this shit? It's at least that's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, him being being a failure is definitely not a surprise to me at all. But for him to go out this quickly in the middle of his first season, the extent to which some of the things he did, it's been pretty hilarious, honestly. Like I've laughed out loud at so many stories that I read about him, and just the videos and everything. So it's been really entertaining, and I'm actually kind of disappointed we aren't going to get more of it.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe though the Jaguars win a game or two and the Jets get the third pick, so you never know. So and then at that point, you're hoping that I'm assuming that. And again, I haven't been on Twitter much, and when I have been on Twitter again, appreciate what's up, Nick? What's up, Assassin? What's up, Delfino? He says it's been hard reading most Jets fans takes lately. They just want to fire cut everybody. Glad you're back for some actual factual takes with some evidence behind it. Appreciate that, Momo. Hey guys, get back to now. No reason to play on me. I will talk about that in a little bit. which, by the way, again, sorry for the technical difficulties. We will. I think we're going to look into, or at least I'll look into StreamYard, so I could put people's comments on the screen because I read them. It doesn't have the same effect to people. So I think I'm going to do StreamYard where I can actually pull up people's tweets, and then maybe we'll look into off season. I know we used to do call-ins and stuff like that. Maybe we'll look into do that again. But the problem is with the 2-hour stream doing call-ins, we just don't have enough time to actually talk about the game and do callers. But in the off season, we're reaching for topics in February, so callers would be welcome. So appreciate everybody again, and sorry for the difficulties. But yeah, and I'm assuming everybody with their draft takes, which listen, like it's late December, so we kind of expect it to be out at this point, but we already have the mock draft simulator up, or the off-season simulator for JetX. So once we get that fine-tuned, I'm sure we'll do a episode of that where you can cut players, you can re-sign players, you can draft. But again, it's kind of the rough draft right now that we put out, and we're gonna edit it and make it hopefully really, really nice. But that's fun to do. We'll do that. Review free agents, review draft, like we always do. But before that, we still have to talk about the Jets and the season they're going through, because one Mr. Zach Wilson, which we can get into, has been struggling. Now, I don't think it's something where we're going to give up on the kid. And I said this a lot last time with Kyle on the stream. But with that being said, is he struggling just as much as Sanchez did? Is he struggling more so than Darnold? Is he struggling just as much as Geno did at this point, for being realistic? Yes. Does he have the best team out of most of those guys, minus Sanchez, obviously? I would argue, yes. I think this is better. What was Geno rookie in 2013, 2014?
Yeah, 2013.
And I would say this team is better than those teams. This team is easily better than Darnold's team. If you look at his offensive line, which his first 2 years was like, I think like 32nd ranked and 31st ranked in his first 2 years in terms of pressures and all that stuff. He had no receivers. He was throwing to guys like Andre Roberts and Chad Hansen and Ardarius Stewart and whoever else the last couple. Well, maybe those are guys of past, but regardless, a bunch of absolute scrubs. The fact I forget their name is probably telling. Where yes, the Jets have a few injuries, but they still have Jamison Crowder. They still have Keelan Cole, who on past Jets teams would be number 1 or 2 receivers on the team. So yes, I understand that Davis is out. I understand Elijah Moore is out. I understand all this stuff, but there's still no excuse for how bad he's been playing. But with that being said, the one positive of it, or the one kind of like silver lining to it, is he's not so much. And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Nani, because again, I'm going to rely on you heavily for this stuff, because again, I was pretty much drunk watching the last 2 Jets games, thousands of miles away. But to me, it doesn't seem like he's struggling like necessarily mentally in terms of like reads and throwing bad throws. It's more mentally just like hitting the easy stuff, because he had that one throw. I forget exactly what situation it was, but it was like a sidearm along the left sideline. I forget who it was to in the Saints game. That's beautiful. But then he rolls out, makes a guy miss, and misses Ryan Griffin wide open, or he missed Barrios on a slant, or he missed Ty Johnson behind him, even though Ty Johnson, which we'll get into in a little bit, is a scrub. And I've said that for months now. Even before the season, I thought the guy wasn't good. But what are your thoughts on Wilson? Because it seemed like the Eagles game, again, I'm just watching broadcasts. I'll be transparent about that. Didn't watch the film, which you guys know I'll get into eventually. He seemed like he was having his best game, at least the first half. Second half didn't look as comfortable, as the Jets offense kind of shut down. But we were hoping for some steps in the right direction, because Darnold's rookie season, the end of it, we know the games. It was the Packers, it was the Texans. I think the Bills was a game in there too. That was a pretty good game from him. And even the Patriots, that last, I think it's the last game, he had a decently good game. So we're hoping that this for the same for Wilson. And after the Eagles game, feeling a little bit positive going to the Saints game. Okay, Saints are a good defense, but he, as long as we're competitive and he looks good, I'll be happy. And it was the exact opposite of that. But kind of what are your thoughts in terms of like him struggling with more of the simple stuff, and not like mentally in terms of like, not seeing, the peeling defender on a smash concept like Darnold did. It's more like in his head mentally in terms of like, I can hit this 5-yard out and not have to set my feet and rush to throw. So kind of what are your thoughts? I got to get back into like the smart Jet fandom. I'm calling you a smart Jets fan because, again, I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter, and I follow you on Twitter as well, but there's a lot of stuff sprinkled in there that is just beyond stupid, which I don't comment on a lot anymore, because I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying to be, a little bit 28 now, a little bit older or a little bit wiser with age, but sometimes it's hard. So,
but yeah, I completely agree with that part of the mental aspect of what's going on with him, because I feel like since he's come back from a decision-making standpoint, starting with the Texans game, like even in that game where, visibly he struggled, they didn't put up yards, points, he missed easy throws. even in that game and throughout the Eagles game and into the Saints game a little bit, like the decisions in terms of who he's getting the ball to is getting better. And I think he's better in that aspect than Darnold was as a rookie
Yeah.
in terms of like actually finding the right receiver, not leaving open receivers untargeted, and then obviously improving compared to his pre-injury games in terms of being more willing to check the ball down, take safe throws. I think he's getting a lot better at that. And we're seeing him do good stuff in terms of like even in the Eagles game, I feel like I saw some really good examples from him of, holding linebackers in the middle so he can hit Crowder on a seam. Or there's one play where he sort of pumped to Ty Johnson in the flat, got the corner on the outside to come down. That got Elijah Moore open on the curl. So I'm seeing some good stuff in that regard. It's just that he has such bad just jitters and overthinking right now that it's hurting him from an accuracy standpoint to where he's frankly the least accurate quarterback in the league right now. And to a point where you can't be successful as accurate as he is right now. So I think that is the silver lining. I think you watch him play, and I see a guy who does know how to play the position and can read a defense and do all these things that I think Darnold really struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
But the just mentally in terms of that's the biggest thing. I think it's not necessarily decision making, and more that it's just he's so in his head, not playing comfortably, not playing freely, and he's just missing throws that you can't miss. So there were some good throws in the Saints game. He got on that drive at the end of the first half. He hit a few good throws in a row. There was the rollout to Ty Johnson, who finally caught a pass. There was a nice one to Griffin that he made, a nice one to Crowder, but just it feels once a week pretty much he'll completely miss a screen pass that is not even catchable. There will be slants, outs, the short stuff that's easy that he's not even throwing catchable balls on. So that's really worrisome, and I feel like it's something that probably can't be fixed until the off season. Until he gets a whole 6 months to rework his mechanics, sort of just step back from the game, get a little bit more comfortable. Then hopefully he comes back next season and we see progress there. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of progress there in terms of the accuracy of the next 4 games. But I think it is promising that compared to those first few games, he is getting the ball out a little bit faster. He's been a little more willing to check the ball down. He's showing better eye manipulation, reading the defense, things like that. So I think that you can feel good about some of the specific areas in which he's showing progress. But at the same time, the accuracy's just gotta be a lot better.
At the same time, he was like, I don't know the stats. Like it seemed like he was like 10 for 40 last game. Like he was just missing everything. And even the balls he's hitting guys on, like they're behind him. Right. They have to slow up for the ball. Like the ball, like we talked about the miss to Griffin, which was similar to the miss to Griffin he had in the Titans game. Obviously, this one was a lot more drastic than that one. But even throw to Crowder deep, like Crowder was open deep, and he just had to lead him, and it could have been or would have been a touchdown, but one Denzel Mims had a hand to the face that we'll talk about later. And that was a missed ball. It was an underthrow. So he has to get that down because in one aspect of it, it's like, it's again, not grasping for straws. I'm trying to be realistic, but like in one aspect, it's like, okay, he's struggling. Like clearly his main problem right now, which can you get over? Can you not? Discussion for a different day. Or a longer discussion for a different day. He has the yips. Like that just is what it is because, and I don't like necessarily love not calling people out, but I just commenting here, seeing a lot of guys on Twitter talk about how Zach was crazy accurate in college. From what I saw, Zach was not as accurate as the top 5 quarterbacks. I do not agree with that at all. Zach was very, very accurate in college. Ridiculously accurate at times. And I would give him more accuracy than Justin Fields. And a lot of people talk about Justin Fields, great deep ball. But then I also put up, again, hours of film out there of him just completely sailing balls and guys not having good power control, which Zach Wilson's struggling with now, but he didn't struggle with that at BYU. So Zach Wilson was definitely more accurate than the other top 5 quarterbacks because even Lance's accuracy was really bad at times. So he was an accurate quarterback in college. That's, again, that was a massive review from everybody on JetX. I did, I think, 8 hours myself. So I put up plenty of plays of him being deadly accurate. So he was definitely accurate. So it's not a problem that he suffered with in college where, again, Josh Allen had that problem in college where he wasn't accurate. And then there was questions about, can you fix the accuracy going to the NFL? Because people say it's an easy fix. It's not always an easy fix. People struggle with accuracy, but it's a little bit more encouraging with Wilson that his accuracy was good. And then now it's bad because he's clearly in his head. So hopefully he can bounce back from that. But at a certain point where they say, listen, year two, he's still doing this shit. It's like, it just is what it is. Like he's in his head. And there are guys, who have all the physical upside in the world, who can't get it together mentally, when you go to the next stage. Look at, again, we'll talk about Denzel Mims in a little bit, but you're talking about a physical freak who can't get it together mentally right now. It's Denzel Mims. So is Zach Wilson another example of that, where, he's trying to be the Patrick Mahomes and the Aaron Rodgers. That's what he's been compared to. And he's trying to not set his feet. He's not being proper with his footwork. And that was it was a slight problem in college, where I said a lot of that back foot, and it's an inner rotation, and it puts them off balance. And when you're off balance, kind of falling to your left, now your arm slot's gonna be different, and because your body has to compensate for your midline, like it's a whole technical shit I'm not gonna get into right now. But he did that a lot in college, but he didn't suffer from it as much as he did in the NFL. Now it's really like rearing its ugly head, and that's why he's skipping balls and missing balls, and he's trying to, again, kind of like point it and aim it instead of just being a natural quarterback. Like I made fun of Christian Hackenberg last week with Kyle, or 2 weeks ago with Kyle. Like he can't hit a pass that I can, 12 millers deep in a parking lot. But Zach Wilson's doing the same thing, dude. Like you gotta be able to hit a slant. You gotta be able to hit an out route. You gotta be able to hit a swing pass. Like it's all really simple things. But again, the encouraging part is that it's, again, something that he did not struggle with last year. And we saw at BYU, he's like freshman year, sophomore year to junior year, like he's progressed and got better at everything. So hopefully next year, with more time, more comfortability in the offense, it will improve. Now, the other part of it is some of the stuff I've been seeing on Twitter is, there's too many voices in his head. What do you think about the too many voices in his head? Because he had Knapp to Kavanaugh to blanking out on his the quarterback coach they brought in from his college, or his personal quarterback coach. I'm blanking on his name. But do you think they have too many? Yeah, Beck. Do they have too many kind of voices in Zach Wilson's head right now? Because my personal feeling, before you do that, just really quickly, as long as all of the guys are preaching the same thing, I don't have too much of a problem with it. Because listen, you're the quarterback coach. You might be working with the receiver coach a little bit. You might be working with the running backs. You might be working with the tight ends. You might be working with the offensive coordinator. Like there's a lot of things you can do. And it's not just strictly quarterback. So as long as one guy's not telling, okay, I want your left foot back in shotgun, the other guy's saying, I want your right foot back in shotgun, which would be the biggest malpractice since Urban Meyer, if they're telling him different things in the meeting room, then it would be that it's I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I think people are just grasping at straws to explain everything. And again, there's always going to be the overreactions. There's always like the underreactions. And it's always somewhere in the middle. So I'm kind of trying to find that. We have to find that in the next couple of weeks. We have to find that in the off season.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I feel like what most people were complaining about was that he didn't have enough help. They didn't have a veteran backup. He didn't have a veteran quarterback coach. LaFleur moved up to the booth. So I feel like, he was on the sideline at first, but I feel like people didn't like that he had to be the quarterback coach and the play caller. So I feel like we were mostly complaining about that. Now he's too much help. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's definitely good that he has, different voices. He has a Super Bowl quarterback in Flacco. He has a guy who's very familiar with in John Beck now. Calabrese is there. Kavanaugh is there. LaFleur is up in the booth now, can focus on his thing, calling the plays, so, at least on game days. So I think the support around him is good. I think it's a positive thing. And going forward, it's going to be beneficial for him to have all those voices around him. And I think going back to what you said about, him having the gifts, I think that's just something that we're going to have to see if it goes away. It is something that could go away, and it's promising, like you said. It's not like a Josh Allen situation where the guy comes into the league, his accuracy is bad. He's never been accurate, because Josh Allen was never accurate. Even going back to high school, people brought up his numbers and they weren't good. You knew he had to fix that. It was physical. But with Zach Wilson, we know he can be accurate at all three levels, into tight windows. You saw it on his tape. He can do it. It's just all mental right now. And can that be fixed? Absolutely can. But is it a guarantee? No. We're just going to have to wait and see, next season with a fresh start, with reworking the mechanics a little bit, getting more comfortable in the offense. If it goes away and if he can be more comfortable next season. But I think deep into next year, we'll have a pretty good idea if he's going to figure it out, or if, like you said, he's just going to be another guy with tools who mentally can acclimate and maximize those tools under the brightest stage of the NFL, because not all guys can do it. And we see every single year talented quarterbacks, talented players at every single position who just can't put it all together because they don't have the mental part of it down. So, I think deep into next year, we'll have, or not even deep, I think pretty earlier in the year, not to be impatient or anything, but I think fairly early in next season, we should have a good idea of how this part of his game is going to progress in terms of can he get comfortable and just execute this easy stuff that we know he can do at a high level.
Yeah, and this is like almost like not like an overreaction, but it feels like it's like a toss up at this point. Like if you like, let's be real, the 56 people in here, including you and I, like if we had like a 50-50 shot right now, just flip a coin if Zach Wilson's going to work out or not, I think we might take it. Like with the numbers that he's posting right now and how bad he's doing, like, yeah, we're trying to convince ourselves of the situation and this and that and give him time. I get all that. But to be realistic about it, like my personal feeling, and I think younger fans, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying younger fans in general, they tend to be more positive, but like we've seen this and we've had these conversations with the Sanchez's, with the Geno, trying to convince ourselves of Hackenberg, trying to convince ourselves with Darnold. And at this point, what it's not much of a like there's not obviously there's difference in the situation, but like we've seen this before, so I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm super positive about it. Like I think right now, if it's a coin flip, I got to feel like okay about those chances compared to what they are now. And we have obviously a lot has to happen still, but it's just so sad that after all these bad years, it's like, you get Darnold, okay, as our savior. And then 3 years later, he's gone. And it's another second overall pick, or not another, but now a second overall pick. He's going to save it. And he's been basically as bad as you can possibly imagine because, like, yeah, he had a good half versus the Panthers. He had a couple of, he had a good game versus the Titans, which I think was overrated. I still say it's like a solid game, not a great game. And then a solid game versus the Eagles. But other than that, and how many other starts he had, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, whatever it's been. He's been pretty brutal. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out with him. I'm not one in favor of benching him. I think the way he's going to get over his yips is to see a couple of buckets go in. The Joe Harrises of the world, the guys who are on cold streaks in the NBA, they need to see a couple fall and then they get confident. I don't think him sitting and learning on the sidelines is necessarily going to help him. I think he just has to go through it. Because, while he can sit on the sideline and learn this concept or learn that concept or learn this guy's footwork, that's all great. That's all fine and dandy until shit hits the fan. You're actually under center until you have to do it. So I think he's just has to go through it. I'm not in favor of benching the kid right now because I don't think it's like mental in terms of him not learning the playbook and not knowing the plays. It's him, just not setting his feet and that's a main problem of it is his feet. So, what's up, Pete? What's up, Ben? I see you guys all in here. Momo. I'll answer some of the stuff. Our wide receivers' body language is showing more frustration every week. Yeah, we'll talk about the receivers in a little bit. Ben says what's scary is some don't ever get over the yips. Yeah, that's 100% true. That's why it feels like a toss up. Joe says he had 3 hours of production at BYU. True, but he also had really good plays when he was under pressure as well. The one thing that did and it has reared its ugly head a little bit in the NFL is, and I felt like this at BYU, is he was way too quick to bail out of the pocket, like reverse pivot, like Russell Wilson does. He got out of the pocket instead of stepping up and manipulating the pocket and like have that really good like transitional footwork in the pocket. Or like conflict climb. And he's not doing that very well in NFL. So that's something that he has to get comfortable with. And again, the offensive line is below average, but let's not people try to act like this offensive line is as bad as Darnold's rookie year's offensive line. And it's not even close. Like, I don't know what the numbers say, but I would say, the Jets are in somewhere like the 18 to 20 range of an offensive line, which isn't great. Okay. Look at that. So they're not great. They're below average, but they're not dreadful. We've seen dreadful lines. Trust me, you don't have a Wesley Johnson. You don't have a Breno Giacomini. You don't have those guys on this offensive line starting. And you had one in GVR who got replaced by LDT. Yeah, LDT, and who's been playing, from my perspective, very well. The 2 weeks actually, or the 1 week I actually watched him, or no, 2 weeks I actually watched him on film. I thought he played really well. I'm not sure how he did the last 2 games, which we'll get into in a little bit. But overall, the offensive line, especially last week too, like it seemed like he was getting some good timing or some good time from the offensive line. Now, yeah, there's a blown, stunt pickup or two, but overall, it still seemed pretty solid. It's going to happen to every team. You're going to have those blown pickups. Let's see. For all of this, we should have took Justin Fields, and at least we would have had athletic upside. Zach Wilson has an athletic upside, obviously, as well. They're just different. Justin Fields is struggling too, so I don't really necessarily get that. So I'm trying to move through the chat. And in terms of the defense too, people are talking about the defense, and we'll get into that. Yes, they're missing Carl Lawson. Yes, they're missing Vinny Curry. Yes, they're missing Marcus May. Yes, they're missing Marcus Joyner. And that is a part of it, because you're looking at a team who was going to be bad before this year. You know, everybody knew this team was going to be bad. I think most people's ranges were between like 5 and 12, and I think the positive people were like at 9 wins. I was around 7 or 8, and then the injuries come and they get poured in. But I don't think you could still excuse some of the things they're doing on this defense. Now, a lot of people automatically, like, whatever you're doing when a bad play happens is like a bad play call no matter what, and they should have done the exact opposite thing. Like, I remember, what was the game? Was that the Texans game where Pinnock missed that tackle? And everybody was like going crazy about that, and they sort of touched down like third. It's like 3rd and 15 or third and goal from the 15-yard line. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. But like, everybody's like, oh my God, like, why would you drop that many guys? Send guys and pressure the quarterback. He has to get rid of the ball quick, whatever. And if that happens, a guy gets beaten on one-on-one, and it's, oh my God, you should have dropped guys in zone coverage. But now he sends forward, gets pressure. I'm not sure if he got pressure actually, but Pinnock is lined up with a guy at the 5-6 yard line. He misses the tackle and running for a touchdown. Oh, you should have blitzed. Like, it's like so of course it's going to happen. Now a lot of people are like, I see the constant thing is like, oh, all the man coverage on 3rd down. Then also the Falcons game, we ran zone coverage on 3rd down and zone blitzes, and they got shredded up with that too. So I don't know if it's zone or man. I just think they don't have the horses to run at certain points. And the one thing that is concerning, and it's something I think that Solid needs to adjust. I'm not sure if Hall has been moving the last couple of weeks. I know he did after or the previous couple of weeks before I went away. So that was a positive sign. With the defensive line, I got to watch. They have to throw in some more hybrid fronts. Like, they can't just strictly 4 men get upfield. Like, you can send 2 or 3 of those guys, but have Foley Fadokasi as a 2-gapper, as a 0. Like, they have to adjust some way, because while they've faced some injuries, they still have Foley, they still have Rankins, they still have Q on the line, and they're getting absolutely gashed in the run game. Which I know a big part of that, especially with 4-3 systems, is the linebackers, it is the safeties who have to take even more on in a 4-3. But with that being said, the defensive line has to start making some plays too. But again, I'm kind of going all over the place because there's a bunch of stuff in the chat. I'm going to try to work through the chat really quickly. Below a 50% chance that he works out, Solzy says. I don't really know. Like, it's, I think what are your chances, Nania? Before I kind of like compartmentalize that, like, if you had to give a percentage chance of Zach Wilson working out, and again, no matter what we say, no matter what anybody says, if you're too positive, you're gonna be overreacting, or too positive if you're under whatever, if you're underplaying it, you're gonna be too negative. And obviously, right now, is it really stupid to do this after 10 starts, 11 starts? 100%. But let's be stupid. Like, I'm fine with being stupid. It's like, if you had to legitimately, Jets fan goggles off, like, given all the stats, given everything you've seen, like, what are the chances that Zach Wilson is a future quarterback, successful quarterback of the New York Jets?
I'd probably have to go. And again, like you said, we're being stupid right now. We're just throwing numbers out. But this is kind of based on something. So I looked at right now. I believe he has the 6th worst passer rating compared to league average for a rookie quarterback in league history, with at least 200 passes. And so I looked at the top 25 of those guys with the worst passer ratings compared to league average. So, the inflation of stats doesn't matter. And looking at the guys who are top 10 picks in that range, because, some of them were 7th round picks, 2nd round, or 7th round, 2nd, whatever. But looking at the top 10 picks of that bunch, 5 out of 13 of them did turn out to be good. Those were Terry Bradshaw, John Elway, Troy Aikman, Matthew Stafford, and Josh Allen. 5 out of 13, which is, I think, 38%. That sounds a little bit optimistic for me, because none of the other guys who weren't top 10 picks out of that 25 guy player bunch did figure it out. So I guess I'll lower it a little bit from there. I'll say 30%. I think that is a reasonable place to put it right now.
That's so sad after everything. And people are obviously gonna get on you for that, Nania, but like, I think if people had to be realistic and not again try to sway themselves, like, to be positive for obviously their watching benefit in their fandom, I don't think that's an unfair number. Yeah, I would just be a little bit more positive, I guess. Like, Jamal Adams, 33%, like, 1 in 3 chance he works out.
I mean, just the average first round pick, just like take nothing into account, just all first round quarterbacks ever, or even top 10, it's still like 50-50 probably. in terms of those that pan out. And then you throw in, Wilson's had the start that he's had. It's got to go down from there a little bit. So it's not 0%, 30's 30, 3 out of 10. It can work out, but it's obviously not where we'd like to be at this point.
Yeah, and he is physically gifted, and I get all the struggles he's having, and people are going to defend him. But at this point, he's been, if you look at some of the numbers, I'm not sure exactly what they are, but like he's been just as bad as like he's been compared to like DeShone Kaiser with some of his numbers recently. So, but with that being said, like while he's been really bad, again, I think it's more of a mental thing, which you could say for a lot of quarterbacks, but it's a lot of like the yips and not like in terms like he's not struggling processing, reading defense and stuff like that. But again, a lot of people were out on Sam Darnold after his first couple of games of year 3. And I was one of those people very early in year 3. I was like, this is not going to work out. He put much more positive on tape his rookie year. Like Darnold's rookie year, forget the numbers. I don't give a shit, whatever. He had so many more encouraging games than Zach Wilson has had at this point, because the only games you could say that are encouraging for Wilson, I would say Panthers, Titans, and Eagles. That's it.
And Panthers and Titans are like marginally so. Like he made some big plays against the Panthers, but not a good overall game. And Titans, kind of the same thing, even though they won, because he did make a lot of mistakes. I'd say the Eagles is his best game, and only good. The other 2 games were good, but probably his only very solid performance. Like Darnold had the Colts game, Broncos, and then he came back at the end of the season. Bills, Texans, Packers, Patriots.
Like, even the Lions game to start off was
even
fine.
Lions to start the year. A lot of really good like performances where it's like, okay, it's not he made a couple big plays. Like that was a good quarterbacking performance that you can win with. And Wilson kind of hasn't had many of those yet. I guess you would only say those 3 that we mentioned. So it's definitely the flashes have not been, in terms of full game performances, not quite as high as we saw with Darnold.
Yeah, and like the Packers Texans game, like he's had nowhere close to those games, because those games were very like legitimately very, very good. And even like the Titans game again, I'm just trying to be fair. Like a lot of people in that moment, like, oh, A+ game. There was plenty of plays in that game that were not encouraging to me. Specifically the missed throw to Ryan Griffin to close out the game, the missed throw to Corey Davis in the fourth quarter to close out the game, missed him on an out route or a speed out, whatever it was. The forced throw in double coverage to Corey Davis, which he got lucky on a DPI, where Keelan Cole was wide open on an over route for a first down. Like he skipped that and just chucked in the double coverage. Like there's been plenty of bad, but it's not like it can't work out. But right now, if you're saying, oh, it's like definitely like 80% chance, like I think you're crazy. Let's get a little bit more into the chat and we'll round it into the running backs and et cetera. Chris Turner, why are we always the most injured team? I have no fucking idea. Sorry for cursing, but like it's always like people are always like to say like, oh, my team is so injured, all this stuff. But if you legitimately go to like the Jets, like IR, all this stuff, like money on IR, the last like 3 years they've been brutally injured. So while the Jets, yes, it's 3 wins right now, and how not even necessarily just 3 wins, but how they've been losing, unacceptable, 1,000%. But with that being said, again, while still unacceptable, you're already projected to be a bad team, and then you have the second most players or money on IR in the league. Like you're missing some of your best players. It sucks, but at that same token, like they should be a little bit more competitive than they are. So let's work down. I think the closest player comp for Zach is Matt Stafford. Yeah, that's what everybody wants to say. But then for every Matt Stafford, there's a DeShone Kaiser who he's been compared to with numbers. So and not even just for Matt Stafford, there's a DeShone Kaiser. There's 5 DeShone Kaisers for every Matt Stafford who put up these numbers. It's not even close. So, Joe, do you think the issues on D are more personnel related or scheme in your opinion? That's a hard one to answer. I would say right now, like the struggle of the run game is more scheme to me, because like you have some guys in the run game. Like we knew specifically, like when they brought in a 4-3, 4-3s for the most part are always going to struggle versus the run more than the 3-4. It's just a nature of the beast. But the 4-3 is also more appealing to fans because it has that pass rush. Like that 3-4, like you need that outside linebacker to really be that pass rush, because those guys are 2-gapping. So they were always going to struggle more than they did last year versus the run because of the switch to the 4-3 and the 1-gapping system. And I also said with the Jets defensive line, like specifically when you have those looks with Q, Rankins, in there, they're going to struggle because they're not the Michael Pierces, they're not the Chris Jenkinses and all these guys of the world. So you take Foley off the field, they're going to struggle. And now you have Foley, who is single gapping, who is a two gap. Like, yeah, he's more impressive than I thought we'd think he'd be as a pass rusher in a single gap system. But at the same time, you're not taking advantage of his full potential, which is kind of, it's interesting in terms of the discussion. Do you sign him, long term? You're signing a guy who's not an ideal fit in the system. Let's just be like real. Even though he's been solid this year, he was better last year to me than he was this year. So that's an interesting conversation. But I would say the run game is more scheme, and the pass game. They haven't been that bad in the pass game. I feel like the pass game they've been pretty they've been at least okay in the pass game. So I don't think the pass game is struggling yet. Yes, is it frustrating as hell every single time I'm watching the game, 3rd and 8, knowing that they're gonna pick up a first down? Yes, but I think that's more personnel because you're running out guys like Ashton Davis and whoever else out there. I don't know kind of how you feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's mostly talent, because at the end of the day, you have as many big plays as he makes. Quincy Williams misses a lot of tackles. Then at safety, obviously, you've been running out backups the whole year, and Ashton Davis has been pretty bad. And I know I put out some Ashton Davis positivity a few weeks ago, but that I never said I was a huge fan of him. I was just saying let's give him a little bit of a chance. But obviously, he's not taking advantage of that. He's been very bad. So I think it's a lot of lack of talent in terms of some of the lack of execution we've seen and stopping screens, because when it comes to the screens, that you're going to get that against this type of defense. The safeties and linebackers just have to take better angles and make plays, and these guys can't do it other than Mosley occasionally. So I think it's a lot of talent there. But like you said, also in the run game, then I think you can start talking about scheme a little bit, because they still play the defensive line very straight up, very vanilla, not a lot of creativity the way they utilize the D line, and which is okay when you have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Forrest Buckner, like they thought they were going to have with Carl Lawson healthy, and Vinny Curry and all these guys. Bryce Huff, who's been out as well, but is coming back now. But when you don't have that, a little more, just mixing it up some more, putting Foley in a better position to stop the run, just using more multiple fronts, doing things like that can help you be a little more unpredictable, stop the run better than when you're just 4 guys down, 3 tech, 2 eye, 2 guys on the edge every single time. So I think there are things they could be doing, the coaches can be doing, to put them in better positions that they're not doing. But at the end of the day, I think it's mostly just injuries and talent. Doesn't excuse being on pace to be maybe the worst defense in the history of the team. Absolutely not. But I think I would say it's 70% talent, 30% coaching. Probably where I would put it.
Yeah. I think even with Carl Lawson back, I think the run defense is specifically what I'm talking about in terms of like the coaching. That's a little bit frustrating. Like I want to see again more 2 gapping, more run blitzing, more run stunts, like that type of stuff. Especially versus a team in the Saints who the only thing they're going to do is run the ball or throw it short. Yeah. So let's send a ton of guys in the box, and hey, maybe you make Taysom Hill beat you deep because he can't fucking throw the ball, but they just didn't do that. So it's like frustrating to see like that. Okay, the simplest game plans they're not adjusting for. And like, what do you think? Like, oh, well, we just run our system. We just run. And again, people always call it cover 3. There's plenty of 4. There's plenty of 6 in this. Like, it's not just strictly cover 3. So that's a misconception. So it's not the Seattle Seahawks. It's just not. But with that being said, I still want to see more adjustment because, yeah, the whole stick to your scheme thing is great. But I also want to see in-game adjustments because the best teams are going to scheme against your. Like, you can't just bring the same scheme into Bill Belichick because he's going to destroy you every single time because he's in a game plan for that. So you have to show the ability to adjust. But getting to the chat a little bit, lose out for Hutchinson. Really, really quickly, top of your head again, because I want to get the chat. We have a lot to get through still in the next 50 minutes because we were 30 minutes late. So to expedite, we're at the number 4 pick right now. Nanya's ideal for, again, I will preface this by saying I at least did not watch any of the film. I watched only a little bit of broadcast, a little bit of what I've seen. Because there are plenty of guys who like, oh, Cleveland Farrell's great. And I watch this film like, this dude sucks. Like, I don't like him at all. With that being said, again, admittedly being stupid, I like to preface that stuff. But there's people that are like, oh, dude, I really want this guy at 4, and they watch a 2-minute YouTube highlight of him, and that shit drives me crazy. Especially when you're a content creator, people actually listen to your opinion for whatever reason. Your 4 guys, ideally that you pick right now? Like obviously, like let's say Thibodeau is one, like you're 1 through 4 of guys you'd want to drop to the Jets right now.
Yeah, listen, and just like you said, I do most of my draft stuff after the season because I
Mm-hmm.
want to focus on the team, actually evaluate all the guys the Jets have, week by week, looking at the opponents, focus on the Jets right now, draft after the season. So I'm not extremely well versed on any of these guys, as some of you may be after watching 2 minutes on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. If you did watch film on him, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we will get there. But as of right now, I think, and I wasn't a huge fan of this, I think a couple months ago, but I'm starting to warm up to it just because of, I think this defense really relies on individual talent and individual playmaking. And I think that you need guys up front as much as they already have up front. With Lawson coming back, JFM is going to be here. Hugh, Huff is back now. Even with all those guys, I think they cannot get enough weapons on that D line. So I think if they can, if they can get Thibodeau or Hutchinson at that fourth spot, I think that would be the dream scenario for me right now with that pick. Then after that, then it gets
Is
interesting.
Thibodeau first and Hutchinson second?
I mean, for me, again, like I haven't watched enough to kind of rank them personally.
No, I know.
But
I'm putting pressure on you right now. They're both sitting at 4. Who are you taking? I preface it
I'm gonna
heavily by
go.
saying
All
we
right,
still did a lot of research into these guys.
so I will answer the call and I'll make my take. I'll go with Thibodeau just because I feel like I like going with the pedigree guys more. I feel like he's kind of been known to be that guy in this class for a long time now. Hutchinson's kind of the late bloomer, so people like the hype and the recency bias. So there's not that he obviously doesn't deserve to be there, but like you said, being stupid, making the take right now, I'll lean towards Thibodeau. But either one, I think, just load up. This defense is the worst in the league. It needs talent to be successful because coaches are, not gonna. This isn't the defense where the coaches are gonna bail out the players as much. It needs to be the other way around. You have to win with the 4-man rush at an elite level, like the Niners did a couple years ago. And I think Carl Lawson's health is a question mark too, as much as you'd like for him to be who he used to be. You don't know. So I lean towards one of the edge rushers at that fourth pick. Definitely the next pick gets a little more questionable. Do you go with Linderbaum at center? Try to upgrade over McGovern if he's still there. Do you go in the secondary? But then the question with the secondary is, does this defense, is it more important to have front seven talent? Can they bail out your secondary more? You have Hall, you have other young guys there. Still trying to develop the linebackers you've drafted, but obviously Kyle Hamilton, some of the other guys, Stingley, they're still there, great prospects. So the only thing I kind of feel sure about right now is that I think I would like one of the edge rushers with that higher pick, wherever that lands. But beyond that, there are a lot of options for a team that has many holes.
Yeah. With that, I would say Thibodeau or Hutchinson. I would say Thibodeau 1, Hutchinson 2, just because of the physical upside of Thibodeau. Again, I have to watch and see. Maybe his technique is just awful. I don't think he's going to translate. And Hutchinson's easily my 1. Again, got to watch. But yeah, one of those guys. And it's not necessarily for need because, like you said, like you have the JFMs, you have the Lawsons, you have maybe Vinny Curry coming back. Like the need at D end is much lesser, in my opinion, than it is at corner, at safety, at linebacker, at tight end. But with that being said, if you have not a generational, but a top flight D end edge rusher, you take them. Like you got to take them. So one of those guys, and then again, past that, like without doing any research at all, from what I've seen and what I've heard people talk about, I would probably say Evan Neal, really good right tackle, landing him, especially with the concerns of Becton. And then maybe you, at that point, Fant's great for next year, $10 million. He's been playing well, which nobody expected, but a few people. But with that being said, if you can get Neal and he can sit for a little while, you have Fant start or whatever, then you cut Fant, you recoup some of that money, fine, get a tackle. Like I'm cool with that. So that would probably be my 3. My 4, a lot of people talk about Stingley, but apparently he has a lot of injury issues, which scares the shit of me. And people are going to like this, but I would take Kyle Hamilton from what I've seen and what I've heard. Listen, I know we've been burned by the Marcus Mays recently, Jamal Adams, but if people are talking about Hamilton and they know what they're talking about, they're calling him a generational prospect, the best safety prospect they've seen in 20 years. I'm fine with taking him. Like, you don't just skip on generational prospects because we've been burned by safeties in the past. If he's that good, he's going to make an impact. Like, people are talking like, oh, Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, like that type of good. Ed Reed made an impact. Oh, safety's low impact. Bullshit. It's plenty impactful even in this system. So I don't buy that argument. So I'm not going to reach for a bigger positional need than safety if that safety, which is a massive need for the Jets, is a generational player. I just can't do it. So that's probably my 4. But moving on. I know that will get some heat, whatever. Angel Sosa, again, I'm behind the chat by a decent amount, but I'm going to try to work through it really quickly. Again, I'll lightning round it. Super chat's always available. I don't think, maybe super chat's available. I don't know. Angel Sosa said 20 to 40% without the Jets goggles in terms of Wilson working out. Again, just scrolling through. Snoopy, Zach's a bust. That'd be epic blunder. Yeah, that would be pretty bad. At that point, like, when do we have faith if Zach's a bust too? Then we get like a new coach, whatever, new GM. Like, I can't do it all again. I'm just so done with having to talk about coaches and prospects and all this shit. Like, because we were so confident, like we were so happy with Douglas, we were so happy with Saleh, we were so happy with Wilson that like I'm going to forever be burned. Like, until they show me, I'm just gonna be negative. Like I just or lean towards negative. Cashman's human IR. Yeah, Cashman's gone off this team. He should be gone. I really like him coming out of college, but Rob Taysom was 50. Maybe okay. I guess we have a Saints fan here, Trey Joseph. Okay. The Saints aren't going anywhere either, but they've had a lot more success than the Jets had. So I would rather be a Saints fan in my lifetime than the Jets. That's obviously true. Y'all defense solid, just don't have O-line and receiver. That is not true. Defense has not been solid. The receivers and O-line have been much better than the defense at this point in the year. But maybe if you're talking about being healthy.
If you only watch the Saints game, I guess that would be your perception. But it's obviously the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite. Yes. Praj says do not draft Stingley. His injury issues. Yeah, I'm not sure how bad his injury issues are, but from what I know, people are talking like stay away from injured. Listen, number 4, absolutely not. Like, if he has injury problems, like I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I hate picking guys with injury issues. But with that being said, let's say now the Seahawks picks is 12th or 13th, and he falls there because of some injury problems. Okay, you can convince me. But the top 5, absolutely no way. I can't draft a guy with injury issues. Verge said this strategy is brutal tonight. Yeah, it's gonna be brutal when you have people who are angry. I'm trying to save. Sorry, just scrolling through. Carl Latifs is not that far from Thibs or Hutch. Again, that's the third edge rusher. That's what people are saying, but like not to be. I'm not singling anybody out in general here, but like based on what. Like, who are you believing in that assessment? That he's not far off from those guys, because I don't know who you're trusting. But that's why I preface a lot of their draft conversation with saying we have to watch, because there's a lot of people out there who are blowhards who have no idea what they're talking about, who put guys up high and then they suck. Again, a la Cleveland Farrell, et cetera of the world. Rashawn Gary, I watched him like, why do people like Rashawn Gary? I don't get it, but people did. That Jet game versus Jags will be the Evan Neal Bowl. Are you okay? Let's say at 3, like, would that be your pick? Like, okay, so now the Jets lose this game versus the Jaguars, and they're sitting there at 3. Hutchinson, and what's his name are gone. Thibodeau. Would you take Evan Neal at 3, or are you kind of again? You can convince me with Kyle Hamilton there too. Like, if he's generational, he's generational. I'm fine with it. Like, again, people will overreact to the positional need shit, which I think it's important, but it's definitely overblown by fans. Like again, Michael Parsons, he's a linebacker. You can't take him in the top 10. You can't take him. He's a linebacker. It's not an important position. Michael Parsons might win Defensive Player of the Year right now. Not even Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He's been that good. Brandon Sheriff made an impact obviously for the Redskins. And obviously what's his name? Quentin Nelson at guard. Can't take guard at 6, has made an impact. So would it be? Are you leaning like Niels, Stingley, Hamilton? Like, if you had to say now.
Yeah, again, and without having watched this film yet,
always got to preface. You could go back to it.
Always got to preface, because we're just being clear. We're not like anyone else. We're gonna throw all these hot takes out without having that information. We're just speculating.
Like 95% of content creators who will watch 5 minutes of YouTube highlights. I'm sorry, it just is what it is. But
yeah. So for me personally, I think I would kind of lean away from Neal or any tackle near the top of the draft, because I think it's just, and Becton's injury history is a legitimate concern. Less so because of this year's injury and more because of last year, how consistently banged up he was, and you knew with the weight and everything it was going to be potential issues. So it is a concern, but I think with the way Fant has played this season, I think he played his way onto the team next year. on that contract, and that, Becton Fant as your tackles is health provided, a very good duo to have. So I think it is an extremely important position. Obviously, if Neal is talented enough to warrant it, it's not necessarily a luxury pick, but I think at that pick, I'd rather have a guy who I know we're going to need than, just kind of a security pick. And you could, draft him in trade fan or cut him and get the cap space or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an option for sure. But I think I lean away from it and would rather invest in the defense, because for me, I think that's the big thing. I know we have a young quarterback, but this is kind of a different situation than with Darnold. There are a lot of pieces on that offense already. We talked about the O-line, Fant, Becton, AVT. You have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, receiver, Michael Carter, running back. They have a lot of pieces on offense that, when Darnold was here, he had pretty much nothing, and you did have to focus on helping him. So yes, you want to help Zach Wilson, but this defense is in much bigger need of help than the offense, I think. So I would like to focus on that early on. And whether you can get one of those edge rushers, and like you said, if Hamilton is that guy, then for sure you can take him at the 4th pick for me. So I'm more so leaning towards the defense, and I would not be huge on taking a tackle up there again without having watched him yet. But then if we start talking about Linderbaum, whatever, with the Seattle pick later in the 1st round, then I think we could start thinking about that. And I'm a pretty big McGovern fan. A lot of people don't really agree with my McGovern support, but even with that, I think I would definitely consider Linderbaum. If the Jets love him, think he's a scheme fit, then you can consider that.
Yeah, and then again, you either get rid of McGovern or you transition to guard, because again, I think people have seen some bad plays, like the bad plays really stand out on broadcast, so people will then compare him to Wesley Johnson, to Jonathan Harrison. He's not that, and that's obviously like Whippy. He's not Jonathan Harrison, but he's, again, like where that offensive line is, like he's like a lower, like not a lower tier center, but he's like a little bit below average to average. Which, if that's your worst piece in the offensive line, I'm okay with that. And while I agree with you that the defense is a bigger need, I would still lean I'm okay. I'm kind of like 50-50. I'm in the middle. If you could draft the right guard instead of a corner, and they're both kind of the same projection right now, I would take the guard, because I'm more about making Zach Wilson successful than I am making the defense good. The defense can still wait. With that being said, the defense is obviously a lot bigger of a need, but it depends. I like the comment from Joe Campione. I don't know if that's how you say it, but Pitt's a tight end, it's Hamilton at safety. And again, tight end's not the most important position, people would say. But if it was a Kyle Pitts, if a generational prospect, take him. I'd be fine with taking Pitts at 3 or 4 if he was in this draft. If Hamilton is that at safety, which preface it, I don't know. But if he is that, if I come away like, holy shit, then I'll take him. Will A, I'll throw this to you. Nani, do you guys prefer the strategy 1 to make the defensive line elite, or 2 improve the secondary to average? How would you answer that?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one, because the talent they have right now is already very much pointed towards the defensive line. There's not a lot in the back end, but you have quite a few pieces up front. Mm-hmm. But even with that, I still think the defensive line should be the priority, because I'm just a believer in the fact, in the notion that the defensive line can help the secondary more so than vice versa. I think that's especially the case in this defense. So that's where I lean, but it's definitely pretty close, because talent-wise, you can live with what the Jets have for sure, provided Carl Lawson is the same player. Whereas it's going to be tough with pretty much no safety. And then at corner, you have Bryce Hall, Michael Carter, second solid, then kind of question mark after that. So the defensive line is definitely a lot more talented than the secondary right now, but I think defensive line is still more important. So I would lean towards continuing to improve the defensive line a little bit, but this is why I think going even in free agency, not just the draft, that going all in on the defense should be the focus of this offseason, because they just need so much for this defense to be functional next year. So I would lean towards continuing to perfect the pass rush, but for sure, if you can get a big time secondary player, whether it's one of those guys at the top of the draft, whether in free agency it's Jesse Bates, Marcus Williams, whoever, then they should for sure do that as well.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends. It's I kind of like bailing myself out of the question. In which way are you making the defensive line elite? If it's making the defensive line elite with the Hutchinson or Thibodeau because we're 3 or 4 and they fall to us, sure, do that. But I'm not like reaching for defensive ends because we need them. Like, I'm fine with adding an elite talent because you could argue that, and not even, it's not really that much of an argument. I think in terms of pass rushing, like if you had Q, Rankins, Foley, Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, Bryce Huff healthy this year, they're near elite. Like they're near that top 5 range. So I think them healthy this year is near that range already. So like you need to round out the talent a little bit more to be near that. But again, if it's adding Thibodeau or Hutchinson, then yeah, sure. But past that, like, do I want to take the like, let's just say the 4th defensive end in the draft, who might just be a little bit better than Huff or JFM out there, versus taking a safety, Brandon Joseph, or one of the corners, whoever it may be. I would lean more secondary in that way. But yes, I would take elite defensive line talent over elite secondary talent, because I think the defense line is more important than defense. But at the same time, past that elite level, I'm leaning towards secondary, because secondary needs a ton of help. Because look at the safety position right now. They have Ashton Davis, maybe Riley next year, and that's it. And I am not an Ashton Davis defender. I don't like the way the guy plays. He has a lot to improve on before I can rely on him consistently. So who's a backup quarterback next year? Flacco, White, someone else? I would probably say White. But other than that, maybe they bring like a guy from like a Niner system or something like that to help him out. Maybe they actually sign a Hoyer or something like that because they need a veteran. And that's one of the areas that we talked about plenty in the past, is that they're them not bringing a backup quarterback for Wilson with experience was one of the most brutal oversights of Joe Douglas this year, in my opinion. Rod says Jets need cornerback, linebacker, right tackle, strong safety, fullback. Yeah, you could argue they need a fullback, they need a tight end, they need a right guard, they need a long-term right tackle of the future. They might need a long-term left tackle of the future. We'll see. Again, that discussion a different day. They need multiple linebackers, they need multiple safeties, they need a corner, like another starting corner. They need a lot of stuff. The good thing is they have a ton of capital to address those needs. You can't drop this. You can't draft a center, guard, or right tackle on top 5. Okay, Joe, if we were sitting at 4 and I could say that one of those guys is Quentin Nelson, you wouldn't take Quentin Nelson in the top 5. Like, I think if they're to redraft that year again, I forget all the picks, Quentin Nelson would probably go number 1 overall. Like if they're that good, you take them. Like Ryan, like the Zach Martins of the world, like they are all ridiculously important to their teams, and I think people would trade the number 1 overall pick for assuming that they are what they are in their rookie year, like all that stuff. Fant has proven he proved he can play right tackle. Hasn't proved. Yeah. The thing with Fant is his uptick with the Seahawks was at left tackle. So moving him to right tackle was a question. And he got signed here to be a left tackle, but then once he drafted back, then he moved to right tackle. And he's better at left tackle than he is at right tackle. But I still think him at right tackle could be around average-ish, which you want to improve on eventually. But I think for a stopgap player next year, I think it'd be okay with it. You don't have to reach for Neal if you feel like Hamilton or one of those guys is better. Isn't tight end important for the floor system? Barney says yes, 1,000%. Which is also one of our criticisms of Douglas this year, knowing it was going to be important. Your number 1 and 2 were Ryan Griffin and Tyler Kroft. Like, let's get real here. I think Kroft is an okay, decent number 2 when he's healthy, but you need a legit guy there, and they just didn't do anything at tight end. Like Ryan Griffin is your guy. Like as in a 12 heavy personnel system, which I know they've at least leaned a little bit. Well, not leaned. They took off some of the personnel usage from 12 to 11, but still, they use 12 enough. So, and that's what the system thrives in. So I'd like to see them address that a little bit more. We need 1 lockdown corner. Yeah, I agree with that. Cornerback's a deep class. I saw that. People saying that. Marcus Williams is not good. Don't do it. I don't know what other safeties are out there, though. There's not a ton out there.
Jesse Bates is probably the only other stud kind of safety out there. Probably those 2 guys.
Yeah. Jets need a punter. Yeah, dude. Braden Mann, like, that's another pick where, like, oh, we just assumed he's going to be a good punter. But, like, I had a much more faith in Morstead than I did with Braden Mann back there, which we might have a busted pick as a punter, because I don't know what he's done, like, specifically the last 2 weeks, like how he's done stuff. But, like, was it the Eagles game where he had like a 25-yard punt or something like that? I was like, what is this kid doing?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I get that, he's come back from injury right now and everything, but rookie year wasn't great. He hasn't been great since he's come back. So, and Morstead was really good when he was here. He's still ranked as one of the top guys. So it's using draft picks on specialists isn't the best idea when a lot of the best players are undrafted free agents, guys who just picked up off the street. So, yeah, that pick isn't looking awesome either.
Yeah. People saying number one corner. Yeah, I agree that they need a number one corner in the next few years. I think Bryce Hall is a solid number two. I just don't think he's enough of a ball hawk as a number one. Like and again, he was better at this in college, but when the ball is near him, he has a really tough time making plays on the ball. Like he has some sticky coverage, but in terms of actually playing it, it's not there. Huge whiff at tight end for Jody. Yeah, that needs to be more of a priority. Kicker needs to be more of a priority. Backup quarterback need to be more of a priority. Like there was definitely things in there that he effed up. Bates is a perfect system. Perfect. Yeah, Bates. I like Bates too. Somebody asked if we keep Jared Davis. No, absolutely not. Okay. With all of our needs, what is the first position you'd go after in free agency? I Tony Lee asked that. I like to typically and this is it, 1,000 different situations or scenarios in this, but I typically like to address what's really shallow in the draft and free agency if I can. But with that being said, I think they need to hit a couple of positions that they absolutely need before they even start the draft. Like they need a tight end in free agency to me.
Yeah,
they need at least one safety in free agency. Those are probably the top two. And then obviously if you can convince like a Ryan Jensen to come here or Brandon Sheriff, like that's my three. Like get that right guard, get that interior line guy for the Jets. So I would probably say tight end and safety are two non-negotiables for me in free agency as soon as it starts to throw money at those, because they are so shallow. And maybe linebacker too, because like past next year, yeah, Quincy has a few flash plays. I still think on a good team, while we love him and we love the hits he makes and we like the funny sound clips, I think that while he could be a starter eventually, right now I'm saying he's a solid backup player to me. So you need probably two starting linebackers, two safeties. So I would say safety, linebacker, tight end are three non-negotiables for me as free agency starts. I don't know about you. If you have three to start right away.
Yeah, that's definitely where I start. Tight end is number one because you credit LaFleur for adapting and changing it up, playing more 11, a lot of 10 as well. Because they didn't have the talent. Croft got hurt, so he changed it. Good job by him. But at the end of the day, 12 is what they want to do, and he can't do it with the players that they had this year. So they need to get that guy, whether it's Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki, although Gesicki isn't really a tight end. He kind of lines up at receiver most of the time. But whoever they can get, they got to upgrade tight end. And then I would look at safety too. I think there's a lot of talent there in free agency, whether it's Marcus Williams, who's very good playmaking free safety. Jesse Bates is a good all-around safety as well. So I think those are the two positions I'd start because they are crucial positions. Safety is important in every defense. I know people look at it as less valuable or whatever, but you don't realize how important it is until you have the safeties that the Jets have, and they make huge mistakes every single week. So safety would be huge for me. They have that's probably the thinnest position on the whole roster. Well, maybe safety and tight end, but then tight end is just not crucial for most teams, but for this team and the scheme they want to run, it is important. So I would start a tight end and safety, and then beyond that, I would just say a defensive playmaker, whether it's another safety, a corner, linebacker. Edge isn't great, and I don't think they should spend any more there anyway. So I would just say another defensive playmaker in addition to those two positions.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have about 30 minutes left, so let's run through the rest of the positions quickly through the last couple of games at least. I know running back Michael Carter is returning this week, which is great because past that, and I think Tevin Coleman's returning too, which again, I think he's more of a jag, but I think a jag is probably better than what Ty Johnson is at this point. This last game where he had 3-4 drops, and I get the one was yes, it was behind him, but it's still a ball that's on your back hip that you should catch as an NFL running back. The one pass, it looked like he tried to run early, but Ty Johnson is not a reliable pass. So what is, other than being explosive and trucking some guys and being literally fast, what does he do? He can't. Yeah. He's not patient. He can't read a defensive line and open and holes, and he just rushes into the back of guys. He can't catch. He can't pass block. So what does he do? And then P. Ryan, he came in, and I somehow he averaged. I don't know what his average was. I thought it was 4 yards a carry, but P. Ryan came in, was not impressive to me. So I think those guys are below rosterable at this point. I think Coleman's rosterable. I think Michael Carter's legit 1A, 1B. But I was not impressed at all what I saw from the two running backs who were active last week at all.
Yeah, P Ryan's average, I think there was one play, and it stood out to me right away that pushed his average up. It was like a 16-yard run or so. I forget what kind of concept it was, but I think it was to the right side. But it was a huge hole, and it looked like a carry that, a faster, more explosive running back might have scored on, and he only got 15 yards or so. So I think there aren't any special abilities with P Ryan. He doesn't have really the power to run through people. He doesn't have much speed to run past people. He just doesn't really create much of anything. And then Ty Johnson, like you said, just doesn't have any of the fundamental skills, can't block, a lot of drops. So, yeah, I think you really felt the impact of the running backs being out in this game. But it's going to be good to see Carter back because he's obviously putting himself on a star caliber kind of trajectory already, even just within this season, not even in the future with, the numbers he's putting up 80, 100 yards a game. So it's going to be fun to see him back and see him start to kind of get that connection going with Wilson because his leap kind of came after Zach Wilson went out while he was on the sideline. So to see Carter now get a chance to build some momentum with Wilson should be fun. And because Wilson, I think, is doing better at looking for checkdowns, obviously he's got to be more accurate on those checkdowns, but he is looking for them more than he was earlier in the season. So I think Carter should be able to get going more than he did earlier in the year with Zach.
Yeah, you're hoping so because Carter's like breakout came with Mike White and Joe Flacco's of the world. So you're hoping. We had a comment here that says this sounds crazy, but y'all, I'm guessing he's a different team. But Trey for RMVA, I don't know. Saying we have some building blocks. Yeah, we do. Like, and a lot of the problem again is injuries. Like you have Carl Lawson back next year. You have Q. You have Bryce Hall. You have Michael Carter. You have AVT. You have Mike Carter II. Like there are building blocks here, but injured, young transitioning systems. Like we're hitting some roadblocks. Obviously, but tight ends. Other than that, from the last couple games, like what I don't. Yeah. Let's skip that. I guess receivers. Listen, like Crowder's a solid slot receiver. I think Braxton Berrios is maybe a little bit underrated by fans. Like people are like, oh, just get rid of him, whatever. Like I think him being like your fifth or sixth guy as a backup slot, he's a good kick and punt returner or a good punt returner. So he's a good special teamer. I think he's relatively reliable when he's in the game. So I would look to bring Berrios back. Past that, I think he had the most catches in this game. Maybe I'm not, or maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. Denzel Mims. Listen, there was Corey Davis insinuating in the offseason he wasn't working hard. Now there's reports out, I think from Connor Hughes, that he's like dogging it on the drills in practice, like the ladder drill, all that stuff. Like he's dogging where everybody else is fast and he's lackadaisical. There's reports of him not knowing the playbook. When he comes in a couple of games, he's dropping passes. This last game, he had a illegal formation. He had a hands to the face. And for whatever reason, when I've watched him run routes specifically, he looks super lazy in his routes. There's a couple times he's not running his routes. And every single route, it seems like he just goes to his break point, tries to get physical, and breaks. There's no footwork. There's no stemming. There's no short striding. There's no different releases. He just gets to his break point, out physical, cut. Like that's all he's doing. So while Mims, and it was the situation of Mims and why wasn't he playing and why is he benched and why isn't he getting the reps in preseason training camp? He's at this point, you have to think he's doing it to himself. Like I get we want to defend him because he's a super talented second round pick from last year who showed flashes. But again, this is the problem with evaluating. It's like great to watch the film, but we don't know what's upstairs in these guys. And maybe that's why he dropped a little bit in the draft because he wasn't there mentally. And now we're kind of seeing that rear his ugly head. And while I think he could maybe bounce back, is he just mentally weak? Like people are like, oh, let's play him. Okay, but if he's on the field, he's not running the correct routes. He's not lining up correctly. He's not getting full effort. How can you say, oh, you're going to hold the players accountable and want players to be held accountable, but then not want to hold Mims accountable? Like so. And I get, Ty Johnson had all these drops. People said hold him accountable. The backup to him is P. Ryan, who is a practice squad player for the Jets, who they wanted to have Austin Walter play over him this week. So they don't trust P. Ryan at all. So they were kind of like shit out of luck with holding Ty Johnson accountable this week. But if you want a coach that's going to get, again, hold the guys accountable, then I think that's what they're doing to Mims right now, because every time he's been on the field, every time you've seen reports of him, there's nothing encouraging about what Mims is doing right now. So he might be a lost cause at this point. We'll see if he can bounce back, but at this point, it's not encouraging at all. I don't. And in fact, I think there was a report out there, and I was like traveling back from St. Thomas. This happened, but apparently he skipped his media availability like Sunday and Monday too. So now you have a player who's not trying in practice, lining up wrong in games, not running good routes in games, not trying. Not showing up for media availability like he's Odell freaking Beckham with the Giants or something. Like, what's going on with this kid?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, earlier in the season or in the off season, it was okay to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. We didn't really know, is this him? Are they not giving him a chance? Is he hurt? Is he, he dealt with the food poisoning. There were a lot of different things going on, but at this point, between both the on field and the off field, there's a lot of very concrete evidence that he is all of these things that we were afraid he would be. The lack of effort, the lackadaisical routes, just all of the concerns are coming up very visibly now. It's not speculation anymore. We're seeing it on the field. He's not separating. He's committing penalties. He's dropping passes. And then off the field, all the stuff that's getting talked about as well. So obviously it's only his second season and all that, but hasn't done a single thing this year to inspire any hope besides a wide open catch against the Panthers in the first game. So will he be here going to next season? I mean, it's not 100% anymore, I don't think, with the way that things are trending. He probably will be, most likely, but I would say that he's definitely gotten it below 100% that he'll return. Maybe he gets traded. We'll see what happens. But even if he is back, he's definitely not a lock to make the roster. So at this point, even with the injuries, the food poisoning, the COVID even, he's definitely done within what he can control, both on and off the field, as bad of a job as he could do. And it is disappointing because he's such a physically talented guy. And he showed it last year throughout the games that he played. So it's pretty disappointing at this point, but there are 4 games left. Corey Davis is going to be out. So we'll see if he can maybe just show a little bit of something. But at this point, it is hard to be optimistic about him.
Yeah, somebody asked the question, like, would you target a talented X receiver? Like, if they could get Devonta Adams, sure, freaking do it. Like, Allen Robinson, obviously, like, he struggled a little bit this year, and people say he might have mentally checked out. So if he's a lot cheaper of a price than Devonta Adams, I would look to do that. Like, I'm looking to upgrade the offense as well, because if you're running out next year, let's say it's Allen Robinson for whatever, $15 million a year, Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, like, what more excuses are you going to have other than, okay, tight end, maybe a right guard, and maybe a backup running back? Like, that's a really, really talented receiving core. So yeah, I would do it. But with that being said, to put more pressure on you, because I like to do that, the minimum draft pick you take right now to trade Mims, being realistic, the minimum draft pick, lowest, you'd be like, okay, I'm fine with that.
I would do a 6th round pick.
Hurts. It hurts. I would say a 5th or a 6th round pick. Like, you take it right now based on his trajectory. And I was one of those guys when he came out of college in the show with Marcus Coleman, like, saying he could be a legit, like, he has the talent of a number 1 receiver. He does. Like, you cannot tell me in any way that Corey Davis is more physically gifted than Denzel Mims. He's not. Denzel Mims has a much larger catch radius, and he showed in college and year 1, his hands outside of his frame are ridiculous. So somebody said a 3rd. No, I would say like a 5th. I'm at about a 5th. So we're talking about Zach Wilson.
If we're being realistic, it's hard to, you take off the Jets goggles. It's hard to, and maybe even the team wouldn't. I mean, I know there was talk about trade earlier in the season, but that's probably where his price is, 6th, 5th right now. I mean, the guy's done absolutely nothing this year, and obviously has maturity stuff now. So, I mean, I was very optimistic about him after last year, but you got to kind of just accept what's happened. We're in December now, and he hasn't made a single impressive play all year. So.
Yeah. Joe Nelson, what are your thoughts on going defense or offense in this draft? To be super simple and almost too simple. It depends on who's there and when and what they're doing for agency. Like, that's such a loaded question to answer, late December right now. But past the Mims thing, again, it sucks because he has a lot of physical upside. But again, there's a lot of guys who aren't there mentally. And somebody talked about Zach Wilson, and he doesn't have like some of his arm talent before, and not just the yips. The yips is related to his footwork, which relates to his arm. So it's the yips because he showed in college he can make those throws. So it's not like we're saying, oh, he has the yips mentally, but the yips mentally is leading to the bad mechanics, which is leading to the poor arm talent. It's all connected. So Chris Godwin or Michael Gallup seem to be pretty realistic. Yeah, that'd be cool. Michael Thomas to the Saints. Yeah, Michael Thomas, a little bit of head case at this point, so I'm not down with that. But yeah, Godwin, Gallup, Robinson, I would be cool with any one of those guys. So moving on to the, again, 14 minutes, so to kind of expedite the last couple of topics. Offensive line seemed to be fine for me. I did a couple of I think ABT got beat like once or twice, at least from watching broadcast. But overall, they seem to be getting Zach Wilson sometimes or anything like with the offensive line that stands out this game that we should highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was another pretty decent performance. I don't think, in terms of pass protection, I don't think there's ever a game where you're like, wow, they're just totally dominating. There's no pressure whatsoever. They don't necessarily do that, but there also aren't really games where we talked about it earlier, where there were games Darnold would play in his rookie year, just to compare, not necessarily Darnold versus Wilson, but just O lines, in that era where there was no way the offense could do anything with the way they were playing. But this unit isn't quite that bad. They make their mistakes, but overall, it's they do good enough to where you can operate. And in the run game, since LDT got in there and replaced GVR, I feel like they've been above average in terms of run blocking. So it was another pretty decent game. You just had two not very good running backs in there and a quarterback who couldn't complete swing passes. So O-line's been, I do like what the O-line has done, especially since LDT got it.
Like, I think if you bring back Fant and then let's say you add Kenyon Green or Tyler Linderbaum or one of like the like higher tier interior offensive line groups in the league, like I'm cool with that group going into next year. But with that being, well, let me rephrase that. That interior offensive line guy with Fant coming back on his contract, but you also with Becton, you need to prioritize backup tackle. Like that's not a position you can ignore. Just hopefully he doesn't get injured. Like you need to prioritize having a backup tackle who's, we're not going to love it, but probably going to make $4, $5, $6 million a year as a backup swing tackle. But with Becton, that's the risk you kind of you have to you kind of like heed your or salvage your season. I guess whatever. I'm not really, words aren't coming right now. And with Becton too, like again, that's a whole conversation. But he got injured a lot last year, which you can be a little bit critical of. This season, whole coming in out of weight thing was bullshit. We saw the videos of him not coming out of weight. It was a freak injury that happened. It still happened. And his rookie year where he played in I think he had like 10 games or 12 games played, but he came out in like multiple of those games played as well. So you have to prioritize backup tackle. Now, defensive line, this game, again, they got gashed. I'm not sure exactly who was that. That's the hardest thing. Like you're going to ask like about offensive line or defensive line when you're watching from broadcast. It's really, really hard to tell unless you go back and legitimately watch. So I can't really tell you what happened. I know they got gashed though. So.
Yeah, it was definitely another. I think Mosley had a really good game, but outside of him, Quincy Williams missed some tackles, Jarrett Davis missed some tackles. It's kind of some of the same culprits. Nathan Shepard getting moved, a lot of the same story. But I do think JFM had a good pass rushing game. He's had some nice games recently, getting after the quarterback. But yeah, defensive line just not making as much noise as you hope it would make. But I'm looking forward to seeing Bryce Huff come back this week. That's definitely they've missed him quite a bit since he's been out in the passing game.
Yeah, that's been a revelation too. Like UDFA last year, who when Bryce Huff has been in, at least this year, he seems like whatever you want to call him, at the minimum, a legitimately decent starting DN, which is like, again, am I blowing smoke up his ass saying an average DN? No, but for UDFA, a starter, like that's solid. Now we obviously get to see that over a season because last year he was really solid when he came in for limited reps and when he got more snaps. He obviously his production took a downturn on a per snap basis, which maybe we just want to keep him at a low snap percentage. I don't know. Somebody asked about how many people have turned around from the yips. Not many that I can think of. And then somebody else says Gesicki's a great tight end. I like Gesicki, but he's not much of a blocker. So I don't think he fits the system really well because you have to be a multifaceted guy in the system. You have to be able to block, release. You have to be able to take on a D end. Like you can't just be a receiving, like the Evan Ingrams, Gesicki's of the world. I don't think they fit this. And obviously, yeah, great to have them. But if you're going to pour money and kind of like ties back into the Fada Costa situation, do you want to pour a lot of money into a guy who's not a great fit for your system? It's just not smart spending, in my opinion. So I don't think Gesicki's a target for the Jets this offseason, even though people would love to have him, but that'd be an interesting fit. Like unless you're going to use him as like a big slot, like he can't block. So at least to my knowledge. So I can see y'all converting college safeties to linebacker soon. Sal did it before. Yeah, he literally did it with a fifth and a sixth round pick this year with Sherwood and Nasruddin. Trey is a fan of another team. He's been cordial in the chat though. So yes, we still run ride zone. I don't know who he likes, but yeah, he did that with two guys. They're both. Hamza's been back and playing special teams. He's went on the COVID list, and Sherwood is still out, right?
Yeah, he's out for the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Are all the tight ends who played the Jets making the Pro Bowl? No, the Jets just really suck at like Goddard too. Like I don't know what happened that game, but like Goddard just getting like thousands of yards and touchdowns all over us. I don't know exactly what happened there. In terms of the linebackers, yeah, Davis is not coming back. Quincy Williams again. I think he's a solid backup, but at this point, for a good team, he's a backup. It just is what it is. Mosley, I saw he was heavily criticized for the Eagles game and then bounced back this game against the Saints. Seemed like he's playing pretty well. But that was a weird thing that somebody brought up in the chat before, that he like said that the Eagles didn't shake their hands before the game. And then there's a picture of him and like Fletcher Cox hugging. So what was that all about? Because I was completely, again, thousands of miles away. I'm not really paying attention too much. So
yeah, I think it was like, yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. He said that the Eagles didn't shake their hands. Then Fletcher Cox put that picture out that they did. And he also said like he didn't like that the Eagles were laughing at them. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff.
I laugh at the Jets I've been laughing at the Jets in 2012.
Yeah. So, man, I don't know. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
That was an annoying game because it felt like they were just. There are games like that where like that kind of felt like the Bengals game where they come out, they have energy, and they compete right away. You can kind of tell if the Jets are going to play a good game or not. They don't usually start slow, get back into it, and if they start fast, they tend to typically compete. So the fact that the defense was as awful as it was in that game was it was pretty tough because it felt like they had a chance to end the Eagles' losing streak.
Yeah, and especially at first, and it's funny too because I was watching at a bar and there was like probably only like 12 seats in there, and I noticed that the guy to my right was also watching on his phone. And he's a Jets fan in St. Thomas. So we're like rooting together, and after the first touch, we were pumped and all this stuff, and then obviously, the following happened, which I forget the score. I know they got blown out at the end of the game. I forget what the score even was at the end, but yeah, that was brutal. Safeties, Elijah Riley has taken steps up in the right direction. I'm not sure how he played last game. That's safety, D line, O line are probably the biggest positions you need to watch on film after the game. Corner you can argue too, but corner you can see a little bit more because I'm a little bit more involved than safeties. But Ashton Davis got absolutely trucked. Ashton, I'm not sure what he did in terms of like blowing coverage and stuff like that, but like I think he's had a few positive plays. But in terms of angles, making tackles, there's some plays where he's not diving into piles. He's blown a lot more coverages and reads than I think people realize. So and I said it with Coleman when we watched the film. We said he was going to take a long time to develop. He's super raw, not having an offseason last year, coming in a little bit late this year, I believe too. He is still raw, but he's not taking steps in the right direction from based on what I watch, at least in the two games and what I watch the rest of the season. He's been a player who at this point, like you can't rely on him to be a starter, in year 3, which you'd assume third round pick, hopefully could be a starter in year 3. But I think that like next year, okay, maybe a little bit like a hybrid player and a special teamer. But I'm not sure if he showed out better than that on film the last couple of weeks.
No, I agree. There were definitely some big plays. Obviously, he got trucked by Kamara on that one run, and then on Kamara's touchdown where Bryce Hall had a pretty bad missed tackle. Davis did take a pretty bad angle on that one. He had a chance to stop it, but that was a weird play. It was like he had a chance to stop it if he took an aggressive flat angle, but he was really soft, kind of tried to get on top of it. Kamara scored. So, I think he does make some flashes now and then. He's had some good open field tackles. He had the pick a few weeks ago, forced a couple fumbles, but overall, the bad far outweighs the good. So, has not put himself in the conversation to start at all next year. Safety. Elijah Riley's been interesting. I feel like he's made some nice last line defense sort of tackles. But still, you're seeing some of those mistakes with the stopping screens, the angles against the run, and things like that. So obviously, you need 2 new starting safeties next year. And unless Davis is absolutely amazing the next 4 games, which is not going to happen, then you're going to need 2 completely new safeties from free agency or draft.
Yeah, I think people see like a couple of good plays from Riley, and it's automatic like, oh, he's our starter next year. I think people kind of, because the Jets are so bad, they don't know what like a decent depth player looks like, and maybe that's what Riley is next year. Maybe he's your fourth safety, you know. But that'll be interesting. And then from corners from this game, I didn't really see a ton because they threw the ball so much underneath and screens and running. Eccles stood out to me in terms of like being aggressive. I like Eccles as a depth guy, and again, if you're getting a fourth or fifth corner in the sixth round, that's a hit every day of the week. Like, yeah, you're gonna get your Shermans and all those players, but like if you could say your average every 6th round pick you have is gonna be, you know, a depth guy, like that's a hit every day of the week. So Eccles stood out to me in a good way. Michael Carter II was out. Other than that, nobody really stood out. Again, that's hard to watch on broadcast. But other than that, we can wrap up on that game. I'll hit the chat a little bit, and then we'll do a little bit of Dolphins. But that's about it. Anything from the corners really stand out when you watched, or from what you saw sober at home watching in a good environment?
Yeah, there wasn't a ton, like you said, because it wasn't an aggressive attack with Taysom Hill there. He was injured. But Bryce Hall missed the tackle, but I did see some good coverage reps from him. There were some plays where they rolled Hill out. There was one play where I think Hill ended up scrambling for like 1 yard, so it was a stop. And Hall did a really good job. There was a crossing route from the other side of the field. Hall was on the left, and he got depth, got underneath it. Whoever it was on the other side got beat, but Hall recognized it. He didn't have an assignment. He got deep, undercut it. Hill wanted it. He didn't throw it. He got scrambled for a short game. So I like his coverage, even though Hall's coverage, even though he missed the tackle on Kamara, and they didn't really challenge him much. I saw some good stuff, but wasn't too eventful of a game for the corners. But I think they mostly did what you wanted them to do against that team.
Yeah. And Moses obviously played well. Again, I have to watch back, but it seemed like he was all over the field, like shutting tackles, making hard hits, fired up. You know, he was playing pretty well. So it was a good bounce back game from him. Some people are like, oh, he's trash, get rid of him. That's a little bit of an overstatement to me. He's been disappointing for 15, 16, 17 million dollars a year in terms of consistency from game to game, but he still has flashes of a really good player. So hopefully he can string it along with better players around him. He'll be even better. People hyping up Hamilton, our Irish Jets. Again, if Hamilton is what Irish think he is, I'm cool with taking him at 3 or 4, depending on who's on the board. But people like to play the safety card too much, in my opinion. Mikey Mall's first part of the season, I was like, oh, Zach was a mistake. But honestly, now he's looking better. There's definitely been some progression. He's not a star yet, but he hasn't been absolute dog shit. Accuracy short has been absolute dog shit. That's pretty much the worst I've ever seen. But if he can fix that, yeah, I think his mental process is starting to speed up a little bit, which is better. Eccles as a number 4 is a steal, yeah. He's a 6th-round pick though. Eccles. I'm not sure if we're talking about number 4 in terms of like number 4 depth safety. Jared Davis has to go from Joe Nelson. Yes, he's been absolutely dreadful. Moving on, I forget. Oh, that's it from the chat. I'll hit the chat in a little bit if you guys have any other questions. I'll try to run through it a little bit because I'm pretty strict with like 8 o'clock based on my schedule. Again, work midnights. With that being said, Dolphins game, do we have any hope? Somebody asked before who's getting open versus Xavier Howard and Jones, right? Jones. I don't know. You know, maybe Crowder a little bit. You know, Elijah Moore toasted. What's the hell's his name? Jones from the Cowboys. Jones. Byron Jones. Okay, I forget his first name. I think Elijah Moore could, but other than that, like you're running into this game with Cole, Crowder, Mims, DJ Montgomery, Barrios again, like they're going to have struggle getting – they're going to struggle this game because you're looking at a team who likes to confuse quarterbacks. And I know they're missing they're safe – again, blanking out on names right now. I don't know why. They're stud rookie safety, or they most likely will be missing him. So maybe they can't do as much in terms of their versatility in the back end from the safeties, but at the same time, they're a man-heavy blitz team. And Zach Wilson has been struggling under pressure, and our receivers have been struggling against getting open versus man coverage quickly. So this is not a good matchup Sunday at all for me, in my opinion, especially going to Miami. Like the Jets they haven't won there in forever, right? I think the last game they won there was like Geno Smith.
2014, the perfect game. I think so.
The 158.3 passer rating. Yeah. So no, in my opinion, this is a 2 touchdown loss to me in Miami. Now you hope that with that being said, Zach Wilson bounces back a little bit, but I don't have a lot of faith in this game at all. Yeah. Javon Holland. Thank you, Prash.
Yeah, I agree. Offensively, I think it's going to be rough to score more than 10 points, but I think defensively they can compete a little bit. Jalen Waddle's going to be out. Miami's the worst O-line in the league. Bryce Huff is coming back, so they should be able to get quite a bit of pressure So maybe this will be like what is that 2018 game with Arnold, which is like 13-6 against Osweiler or whatever. Maybe that kind of game, but it is a tough matchup for the offense.
Yeah, somebody asked, we winning Sunday? No. Would you? And somebody asked before, would you rather like what's the position group you prefer to have strongest on the team? Like if you can pick one, I would say offensive line.
Yeah,
they put the defensive line in there too, but I would say offensive line first, and then defensive line's probably second. Is Michael Carter the running back playing? Yeah, both Michael Carters are playing to my knowledge. Would you rather draft an early wide receiver or spend on another free agent? I'd rather spend on a free agent than draft a receiver, me personally. But with that being said, I appreciate everybody for joining in, all 100 plus of you, after we had massive amount of technical difficulties before. So you saw me go live a couple times. I wasn't supposed to go live by myself, just like kind of like touching my chin, looking at how to do this shit. I was thinking, again, appreciate everybody, miss everybody. I will be on next week with Kyle. I think I will be doing something soon with another content creator. I'm not going to say who because I'm not sure how they want to promote whatever. I don't know. But I will see you guys next week. Nani, have any last words for the viewers?
No,
No,
I don't. 30% chance for Zach Wilson. I think that's realistic. Sorry. But I am optimistic about him. I'm optimistic about him. I do like some of the things he's done since he came back from his injury. So I'm still optimistic about him.
Yeah, the mental processing has him a little bit better for me. So that's a positive you can take away, the silver lining. But again, he has to get over the yips. It just has to happen. Joe Nelson, I appreciate you, Joe. I appreciate you too, Joe. I will see you guys in a couple days.